Hi and welcome to another video. I'm the Autistic Autist and today I'm telling you my opinion on The Good Doctor. So, I'm a med student in the first year, so don't expect any super medical stuff, while I know kind of some of the basic anatomy by now and basic physiology. I don't feel like I can tell you anything about the curve surgery, but I think it's still interesting. Also, I'm going to focus a lot on the autism part. And the next thing that I need to tell you is I live in Europe, and with Article 17 coming up, I can unfortunately not show you guys clips because of copyright claims and me not wanting to lose this channel. So I'm trying the best to move around that. I wrote down things while I was earlier just watching the first episode. And I'm just going to talk about what happens and what I think about it. I made different points in different colors, and I'm going to remember what I wanted to say. So we start off with him kind of organizing his stuff at home, and we see this magic Rubik's cubes. And to me, they are shown like as kind of stimming toys that he owns, and I also have a box full of stimming toys, so that was a nice little image. Then the first time I've seen that he tries to correct his hair and doesn't swiggle it, I thought he was trying to make it look not as strict and look more normal as normal people would have it. He's trying to look as normal as he can. That's what I first thought. Later in the episode, we will find out that it's kind of a gesture that his brother always did, and it's a way of remembering him, and I think that's very sweet. Then he walks on his way to the airport, and he walks on those white lines in the grass, and I remember doing that a lot. That's something that is also kind of relaxing to me, but walking straight on the line is kind of like there's a way that you can walk to and you won't annoy the people because you're not crossing the field, and it feels comfortable to walk on that line. And then he remembers being bullied, and a lot of autistic kids are bullied and even adults, so that's an important scene in my opinion because it does happen. Bullying is obviously something very horrible, but as an autistic, it can be hard to figure out why you're bullied and that it's just because you're different. You can't change something that is there from the start, even if some people try to cure autism, but anyway, this scene, I think, shows the truth, basically. Then I think a great scene is how they showed the noises on the airports. So many noises and things coming in, I couldn't better describe it. Just you see everything after the other, and now imagine every noise at the same time coming into you. Like that construction noise and everything. And he stims to kind of comfort himself, and that's just a way to try and relax during such a stressful situation. And with construction noise, we obviously have the accident that this whole episode is about. And I hope in real life that won't happen, at least in Europe or the USA or Great Britain or let's say the Western world. I'm sure in other countries are too, but I'm from Western world, so I'm talking about it. And I'm sure there are rules that say that when you are working on a part of a building, then there needs to be a space where the public can't go to. So things like that accident hopefully wouldn't happen in real life. Just as little inputs from me. Then what I think shows the first thing of this episode, where they try to show us that the communication is just different between neurotypicals and neurodiverse people. He's focusing on facts, and it's a bit stereotypical here, because at his age he probably would have learned how to better communicate with neurotypicals. Of course, that's different for every autist. And for me, for example, I would have had an easier time communicating with him, but it's still hard, and I understand why he's saying like you're killing him, because that's just a fact, and he was thinking of the things in his head and he came to that conclusion, and he just wanted to get it out as fast as possible and not try to look at others' feelings. He wasn't thinking of that right in that moment. Then we switch to the scene of the doctors discussing if he will get a chance at the hospital. And that was really sad for me. The way they showed what a huge problem it is to them that someone has autism. It is a disability, but that doesn't mean that you can't become a good doctor. And I'm very thankful to the president, but he said he's high functioning and we don't really use that. What high functioning really means is he masks very well and he's able to function in normal society. And that's not really something about functioning in general. He's just like functioning for neurotypicals, and that's why we don't use that term really. What I wanted to point out is when that surgical chief, I'm not sure what he really is, but I'm calling him surgical chief from now on. He said, "Does that sound like I am describing a surgeon?" And I'm like, yes, that's exactly how I would describe a surgeon. Like, I've met a few and they are exactly like that. They are focused on their work, and they spend most of their time with the patient not being awake. And I think you can see that, and I don't think that's something bad. And they are able to communicate with patients, and I think he's able to. He might be shown as a stereotypical, and I think the general autist is able to mask or to learn how to communicate. And also there could be some help for him if he hasn't learned that skill by now. But also med school, at least here, is pretty helpful with that. Here, it is also pretty open to disabilities, so I could get extra help if I needed it. But we really discuss how to get a good bedside manner and how to communicate medically. So I think at least if he would have gone to med school here, he would have learned those skills. Yeah, and then I wrote down that the fact that they are acting like it's such a major thing to hire someone with autism really shows what is wrong with the world. Disabled doesn't mean incapable. It was really frustrating for me to watch that scene because it was just like as if, like, I'm autistic and I have cared for people and I will care for people in the future, and I know that there's researchers done that show that there are a lot of autistic doctors out there, and if you keep your mouth shut and kind of mask and act like everything is normal, then it's no problem. But as soon as you are open about your problems, they act like it's a major thing and everything. And I think it's hurtful that the disabled people in general have to hide their disabilities. And if they are open, they always are faced with problems. And that generally comes down to being different. And people not knowing what that difference actually means, and people being misinformed. Like the chief of surgery is totally misinformed, and it's hurtful and it's shameful to see that the medical field is like that. Yeah, then I wrote down that I really liked the chief, even though he used that term, and he was not. He still was focusing on the right things, and I hope that what they are trying to show here is that he who spent time with an actual autist and got to know him better and how autism really is, he knows that he is right for that job. And the others who don't really have a connection to autism yet are looking at just those stereotypes and thinking that he's not capable of doing it. Yet in the next scene, all of those, fun in the hospital that is shown. No. A hospital is like any other workspace, if not even a busier workspace. I don't think you find that much time and that much space for having so much fun. Then the next scene where they show the veins of the boy and everything, they do a great job in visualizing his thoughts and how he gets to his conclusions in his head, but he misses to inform others how he got to the conclusion, and he just throws out the conclusion and everyone else is confused. That really happens so often to me, and I'm trying to learn that. That's not changing me, that's improving me. That's what I mean by not needing to be cured. I'm still autistic, I'm just learning things about myself and improving myself without the need for me to get neurotypical. And now I went down the line to a completely different topic. I'm sorry. That whole thing of his thoughts are running wild and they are really fast, and he comes to the conclusion and then he moves on because he knows that they are running against time, and he runs to someone and asks for that knife. And that is where you can really see that he struggles to communicate what he needs and why he needs it in a way that it's understandable for the neurotypical one. This might be over-exaggerated and everything, but TV shows are normally, and the whole medical things are exaggerated too. But it's a nice way to show that miscommunication can lead to someone who's trying to do the right thing being viewed as someone who's violent and aggressive, even though he's just trying to help. Then I wrote down, where the heck is the ambulance? They've been there a long time, and he will go on for a while, and the ambulance is still not there. And at least here in Austria, the ambulance would have already been there. Like, the whole thing that they are doing, that must have taken over 10 minutes, and that's the ambulance would have been there, especially at a busy place like the airport. The throwback shown is painful to watch, I think, but it's nothing over-exaggerated. It does happen, and people are frustrated because they expect someone to behave a certain way, and then he doesn't, and it doesn't change, and you are trying, and that makes you frustrated. But that doesn't excuse the way his father is acting, not at all. And the whole violence in a relationship and with kids and everything is very true. I don't have to explain that to you. And him seeing to stim and like moving around like that, I do that when I'm very, very overwhelmed and sad and I can't really deal with the world. So I really felt for him, and that must have been so hard for him to watch. Then the next scene where they saying behave yourself to him, I really felt that one. I've been told that one a lot, and it's just a miscommunication from both parties. Yeah, the neurodiverse party here is the one who is not the typical communication way, but that doesn't mean that his communication way is wrong. He wants an ECMO because he thinks it's important, and as we later on see, it is important. It's not easy, especially in such a stressful situation, to communicate, and there are some things that I in therapy learned that would help him to better communicate. But looking at his throwbacks, I'm not sure if he had the right opportunities to really grow, but he still has those. Like, he still can grow, and they thankfully listen to him. But what I thought in that situation is he must have had a phone, because he had his bag and everything. He was traveling to live here, so he must have packed his phone, and when he gets called, we are remembered of the fact that he needs a phone. So when they throw him out, and I know the president of the hospital, then I will call the president of the hospital and be like, hey, so this and that happened, and this boy needs an ECMO, in my opinion. Can I get in and at least explain what happens? Or he needs to come to that meeting. And being autistic and knowing other autists, I know that meetings and certain dates are very important to us, so he wouldn't have forgotten about that one, and he would probably have called and told what happened. As a little information about miscommunication, I did have those with teachers, for example, too, and I've been told sometimes that I'm rude, even though all I'm trying to do is say the correct thing, but sometimes the correct thing isn't what the authority said. And this did never matter to me, and I now understand this whole process because of like looking at people and looking at whole interactions and like reading people and everything. But in such a situation, the truth is more important than authority to me. So I will like insist on the truth, and that got me in trouble sometimes in school, especially. Yeah. Then I smiled as I saw that he memorized the map. That's like memorizing stuff is a typical trait in autism. I'm not so much about memorizing maps. I will have them on my phone. But that he memorized it, I mean, it happens, and it might be a little bit stereotypical Sheldon Cooper thingy, but it can happen, so I don't think it's that bad. Then the throwback, him being upset and stimming and not sure how to process his feelings of his like security animal being killed and being dead, and he can't do anything, and he's faced with a thing that is hard for any kid, and he doesn't have anyone who really knows how to help him process this, because he has his brother, but his brother is as old as he is, and I'm sure overwhelmed with caring for his seemingly older brother. And yeah, it really shows that he's struggling to process those feelings. And I fell in love with his brother and his need to care for him. Yeah, that's very nice. I mean, it's for dramatical reasons and everything, and it's a TV show, but I still like his brother. Yeah, then I wrote down that surgery chief is so misinformed about autism, and it hurts me to watch. And yeah, those are the scenes where I just want to jump in and correct that person. Yeah. I mean, what he's talking about is that someone can't be a good doctor because of that. And I think thinking outside the box is so important in medicine. Like, for example, with that situation with the ECMO that he had, yeah, it was over-exaggerated and everything, but you need people who think differently, because when everyone thinks the same, it's no help. Like, everyone will think the same, and if that typical pathway won't lead to success, then what? But if you have people who think differently, and you can find solutions in so many different ways to problems, so people who are different are so important in every field, but especially important in things like the medical field, where you are trying to save lives. Then we get another scene of him thinking, and you kind of are able to see how he thinks. And you probably tried to look at all the pictures and everything, and you forgot that time goes on for the person standing out there, and that's what we have too. Like, we are concentrated on all these things we are thinking of, and then it can happen that the person behind there isn't like getting what we are doing because we are in our head. Then we get shown that autism is good for medicine because he notices those small differences, and he really thinks about them, and those small differences would have slipped with all the other doctors. And that's what I think shows that we need autistic and generally neurodiverse people. Then I wrote down that wow, they really need those weird diseases in the weirdest form. But I think that's in general a medical drama thing, so let it be about it. It's not going to educate me very well for my med school, but that's not what it's about anyway. As long as you don't think you can treat someone afterwards. Yeah, then I wrote down that it's sad that it needed that viral clip to kind of make them think about their decision. Then again, we are shown how he struggles to communicate with the surgical doctor who at first told him to behave himself and threw him out, and then wanted his help, and now is trying to be his friend. And I really get him, and I think that's me being autistic, but I really get his point of asking questions like that. I do ask people questions like that too. Another thing though is not every autist is like sitting there and not able to communicate and answer questions. Like, I know people that would have known that that person wants something from you, and it would have stressed me out if I would have no question to ask, and it would be stressful for me, but I would have found a way to communicate. Maybe I wouldn't have looked normal, because I would have like been like, no, not really, but then thinking of something and then probably finding a completely weird question to ask. You can struggle to think, like I, for example, like to make what you think into words. That can be hard, but you wouldn't have been sitting there and those awkward pauses in like interactions. Those are pretty uncomfortable for a lot of autists. So it's not like you meet an autist and they won't really talk to you. It can especially be the opposite, especially with me. Like being hyperverbal because you hate those poses and are trying to be normal, and yeah. Yeah, then you see the whole scene with his brother, and that really broke my heart. Like, they made a good job in making his story heartbreaking and feeling for him and everything. Then they have another discussion, and the discussion is a lot about emotional stuff and not really about the facts, and no one is highlighting actual facts about autism and studies about that they are capable of being doctors and stuff like that. And I think that would have been very important in the communication. And then we get that scene in the OR where the actors, I realized that they are struggling to put the mask and everything on him, and also have the camera there, and it was so funny for me to look as they were trying to get the mask on. And last but not least, our heart is broken again by that surgeon. I would have loved to talk with that surgeon about his decision. I remember watching a documentary about the autistic boy with selective mutism, and they tried to explain it, and in a documentary, in something they film, they will show you their way of autism that will sensationalize everything, that you want to watch, that you want to feel for, that you want to be like, oh my god, that poor family and everything, just because it gets the clicks and everything. But that doesn't mean that every autist is like that. And that doesn't mean that that boy is incapable, because in that small documentary, they weren't even able to ask him anything. They were just talking about what his parents observed. And I'm not saying that every autist can become a surgeon or a doctor, but not every neurotypical person can become a surgeon or a doctor. Just because one that you know, or form of autism that you know, form of autism on a spectrum, by the way, a huge spectrum where nobody is the same. You can't put them all in one box and label them all as not able to become doctors. And now I rambled a lot, and I And I think you all get the point. We can become doctors, as I'm going to prove. And it does happen a lot, unfortunately. So I could get extra help. They do a great job in visualizing, visualizing to inform others how he got to that conclusion, and he just throws out the conclusion and everything problems. So people who are different are so important in every field, but especially especially important when we are talking about someone, but especially important in things like medical. It's just for drama. And then we see the scene in the operating room, and I noticed how the actual actors are struggling to put stuff on him. And I thank you for watching, and I hope it was fun and interesting to watch. I'm sorry I can't show clips. I just, with that whole thing going on in Europe, and if they will ever make it possible in Europe to react to stuff like that, I'm happy to do so. I think it would be fun to do it with clips, but oh well, I tried my best, and I hope you appreciate that. And then I'll see you in the next video. Bye!